Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's the return of Nicki Minaj on Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. The weeks, I think, won't wind up busy, I swear. But no, what appears to be the whole back to routine is a pretty healthy slate of new songs, and I'm shorter on time to get through them than I would like to be, go figure. Now the funny thing is that outside of that list, the chart seems to have stabilized completely, so maybe it's just a case of new singles not catching a lot of traction? Well, anyway, we're gonna go off into our top 10, where sitting at the very top is We Don't Talk About Bruno by the Encanto cast, where between the unbreakable streaming, mostly courtesy of just insane YouTube, great sales, and even some fledgling radio growth, I'm not seeing what's really gonna break this. But make no mistake, our big new debut definitely tried, as from Nicki Minaj and Lil Baby, we got a song at number 2 with Do We Have a Problem, backed up by better sales, but weaker streaming and no real radio here either. It lost on the margins. Now all this was enough to push back Easy on Me by Adele down to number 3, which seems to be on its way out at this point. The sales and the streaming are falling back, but it's still got a thick enough radio margin that it's gonna take its sweet time dropping off. Certainly stronger than Heat Waves by Glass Animals at number 4, which might have better streaming but far weaker sales, and it lags enough on the radio where it's starting to lose there too. Now granted, so is Stay by Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber at number 5, which is also falling off on streaming and the radio, and that takes us to Super Gremlin by Kodak Black at number 6, where the streaming remains as solid as ever, but is the limited radio growth gonna push it higher enough in time? Hell, I would still put the smarter money on ABCDEFU by Gale at number 7, because while the streaming is weaker, the sales are actually there and the radio's starting to surge properly. It's gonna be a numbers game in this for the next couple of weeks, and that comfortably places it over Shivers by Ed Sheeran at number 8, very much in the middle of its own collapse on the radio. And that takes us to another new top 10 entry, and one I did not see coming, Ghost by Justin Bieber at number 9. Now this has had a long and slow radio run, and while I think as a late single it's not really gonna do much more without sales or streaming, it was just enough to claw over Surface Pressure by Jessica Darrow at number 10, which is squatting on a frankly ridiculous amount of streaming, but it's not really gonna go much further. And on that matter are losers and dropouts. The majority of those in the latter category are mostly the debuts from last week, but we did see No Love by Summer Walker and SZA, Take My Breath by The Weeknd, and If I Didn't Love You by Jason Aldean and Carrie Underwood make their expected exits. And the losers don't seem to have much going for them either. Off the debut, High by the Chainsmokers crashed to 82, and Rumors by Gucci Mane and Lil Durk hit 63, and we saw the continued losses for Too Easy by Gunna and Future at 92, and Cold December by Rod Wave at 76. The only other two losers are both country songs that overperformed their expectations, where Buy Dirt by Jordan Davis featuring Luke Bryan will probably net its year-end list spot, while Whiskey and Rain by Michael Ray falls short. Good. Now what I find a lot more interesting here is that there were barely any gains or returns this week. If that's not a sign that the Hot 100's kind of stabilized, I don't know what is, but the only comeback was Moth to a Flame by Swedish House Mafia and The Weeknd at the very bottom at number 100, and the one gain, Enemy by Imagine Dragons and JID up to 31. What kind of shocks me with that one is that the radio is not really behind it at all. It's streaming. And that means there are people who willingly endorse this. Now I'm assuming the majority is coming from the crossover from Arcane, but it's not like we made the original Pokemon theme a hit in my day, and it's eons better than this is. Although fun fact, that song actually charted in the top 5 on the dance singles charts in the year 2000. Which I think only raises more questions here. But moving away from all of that, we actually got a solid 10 new arrivals here, starting off with number 97, When I'm Gone by Alesso and Katy Perry.
But it won't be for long, you'll see when I'm gone, I'm never really gone. You think you're moving on, but no one's gonna feel like.
This is gonna sound harsh, but here it goes. I don't really think there's going to be a Katy Perry revival. Not saying she's going to stop releasing music or that it's guaranteed to suck if she does, but outside of her die-hard fan base and some stan circles online, I'm not really sure she's got that cult of personality to ride a lot of consistent mainstream crossover like some of her peers do. So to see her working with Swedish producer DJ Alesso, it's not surprising. And I gotta be honest, even if I was gonna root for a comeback, I'm not sure I would have done it with going straight for the sort of minor key, piano-driven, pulsating, pitched-down house music, where it becomes abundantly clear just how much Katy Perry's rough edges vocally are being compensated for by pressing them through layers of synthetic effects and compression. Honestly, I'd kinda argue that her vocals are outright overproduced here, sapping away that little bit of personality she does have, and that honestly does not work for a song where she's playing on the central premise of "you're gonna miss me when I'm gone." And I'm not sure that's true. Yeah, the melody of the hook is kind of sticky, even if the entire song is derivative of Tiesto. But what bugs me here is that there's nothing about this track that convinces me that only Katy Perry could do it. It's not gonna be hard to let this one go. Just saying. Number 88, Hate Our Love by Queen Naija and Big Sean. I'll be honest, I'm surprised folks are still trying to make Queen Naija a thing. The minor success she had, that was back in 2018, and it certainly wasn't all that memorable for me. So color me surprised that not only she put out an album in 2020, but she actually got decent reviews, and it sold remarkably well, with several songs placing on the R&B charts, but not quite crossing over, at least not to the critical set. So okay, team up with Big Sean, and leave me wondering why Jhené Aiko isn't the pairing here, outside of maybe Sean throwing a favor to another Detroit artist, and it's okay, I guess. The watery flip of the Bobby Glenn sample is actually pretty nice, and both artists play pretty well for a love song that's mostly about flipping off everyone that hates that they are together, given that they think they are built for the long haul. I actually really like Big Sean's bridge here a solid bit, where he does highlight the places where there may have been tension in the past and where he tried to put in the work to fix things. Although I will say that verse seems very built for a duet with Jhené Aiko instead, and as good as Queen Naija sounds, I don't think I would complain if Jhené was on this instead. I think my bigger frustration is that Queen Naija doesn't really bring much that's all that interesting in terms of vocal timbre or style or charisma. There's a lot of R&B that sounds just like this, and while this is fine, I just don't think it's all that memorable or distinct. That's all. Number 87, Doja by Snot and A$AP Rocky.
Bitch, I fuck that bitch named Doja Cat. Pull up in a scat pack. Windows tinted all black. Bulletproof and all that.
You know, if I was in a relationship with Rihanna, I'm not sure what my impetus would be to release music at all, especially a duet with Snot of all people, who got a modicum of traction off that guest verse from last year I already forgot, but not much else. And, well, I can see this working to a point. The heavy bass backing up the chalky snares and that operatic vocal sample pushes into some pretty dark and menacing territory, but then you gotta deal with both MCs on the track and it doesn't quite work. Doja Cat herself has already clapped back at Snot for his hook, and he actually had to backpedal, mostly because I'd probably argue she's a better rapper than him, certainly more famous. But he's also very obviously playing the villain here, all about stealing your girl and then being a dick to her. And I think my bigger problem is that he's just not all that interesting or creative at it beyond the standard gunplay and drugs. And then there's Rocky. Look, I'm not a prude when it comes to certain bars by any means, but A$AP Rocky seems to have interpreted his bad guy assignment by going straight to the most lazy sort of swear to rhyme, and again, it is lazy, and then saying that he fucked his first MILF at 10 years old. And I get that that might be asking too much to expect more from this. A$AP Rocky has spent his entire career coasting on style over substance, but again, it's lazy, it's blunt, just not all that impressive. I'd skip it. Number 78, Black Summer by the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Waiting on another black summer to win. It's been a long time and you never know when. Waiting on another black summer to win.
You know, there is still a part part of me that's kind of impressed that the Red Hot Chili Peppers, of all rock bands, can still actually nab charting presence with new singles, especially given that John Frusciante has rejoined the band. So I was kind of excited to see this at least be as good as Dark Necessities, which was great enough that it still kind of irks me that to this day 2016 couldn't have given it a proper chart run. And unfortunately, this is no Dark Necessities. That's not saying there isn't a decent amount of praise about it. Rick Rubin's production gives the song an immediacy that it kind of needs, and immediately places you in mind of a lot of the Red Hot Chili Peppers' glory years. And while the less funky ballad side of this band isn't quite my thing, I did appreciate Frusciante's solo, and the bass line simmers really well. I guess my frustration with this is that for as much as this band is obviously trying to revive a lot of memories of their glory years, trying to go for such a dark, melancholic single about the fires in Australia and environmental collapse, it feels kind of clunky, especially given how they reference Greta Thunberg and censorship, and then point a lot of fingers at China as the primary culprit, which, I mean, come on, their industry is just as dependent on the American market of excess and consumption. It just feels like kind of shallow analysis, especially for a band that shovels out the Californication. Yeah, overall, it's a good sound, and I appreciate that the Chili's are getting back into their groove, but my favorite era from this band was their wilder 80s streak, and I'm not sure this plays to their best of their strengths, even in their glory years. It's not bad by any means, honestly it's quite likable. I was kind of hoping for more. Number 77, Emo Girl by Machine Gun Kelly and Willow. I saw so many people get so angry about this collab as if it wasn't the most obvious team up in recent memory. Granted, I was coming at this as someone who actually appreciated MGK's pop punk pivot more than Willow's, but hey, they both at least have a personality, and Travis Barker's still producing, and oh wow, this is generic as all hell. Now, on the one hand, it's definitely the right choice for MGK to mostly play second fiddle to Willow here, and it's a good balance for how they both want to fuck emo girls. But on the other hand, it just kind of feels like it's running through a lot of emo cliches cribbed from the bad sides of Tumblr, and there's just not much that really hooks me with it, especially as I'm fairly certain this melody was stolen from Blink-182's Garbage Can. And by that I mean even more than usual. More than anything, it's giving me the sense that Tickets to My Downfall was a fluke at best. And while I kind of predicted that would be the case myself, I'm still kind of disappointed that this isn't more interesting, that there's not a little bit more to this. It's coasting more on personality than anything, and while that is enough to get it in the door for me, I don't think this is that bad. I just don't think I'm going to go back to it much. That's all. Number 73, Scared Money by YG featuring J. Cole and Moneybagg Yo.
Scared money don't make no money. Pussy, we ballin' on you fucking dummy.
And here I was hoping for the old No Worries song to chart off of TikTok, but no, we got this instead, and oh wow, it's rough. You know it's a really bad sign when Moneybagg Yo might have the most competent verse on the song in terms of structuring a flow, even if J. Cole is probably the most naturalistic charisma, but everyone is slipping off the beat here. Frankly, I'm shocked how sloppy YG sounds opposite this lumpy beat and piano line. He can't even structure his cadence so the line "Scared Money don't make no money" fits on the beat of the hook. And that's after a verse where he talks about when he gets the drop on his op, he's gonna Dora explore it. And then have the line, "Walk in best dress, but I'm no Kid Cudi." I don't think anyone was expecting that out of you, YG. But outside of that, bog standard flex song with guns without even much in the way of brand names, so you're stuck focusing on how none of these guys are rapping all that well on this track. It's jarring as all hell. So yeah, maybe J. Cole's just playing down to his peers, but yeah, this kind of sucks. Next, number 52, She's All I Wanna Be by Tate McRae.
You could change this fast. She's got everything that I don't have. How could I ever compete with that?
So I have no idea what Tate McRae's doing. Her label clearly wants Billie Eilish, which is what they got with You Broke Me First, and to a lesser extent Feel Like Shit, which honestly reminded me a little bit more of Alessia Cara and Camila Cabello. But her collaboration songs, and we've gotten a decent number of them up here in Canada charting, but they haven't really played for that territory. They're trying to give her a bit more personality, and now with this song getting some TikTok traction, I'm not really sure it works, or how I feel about it. Now on the one hand, about half the guitar timbres Greg Kurstin provides kind of gives it a bouncy pop rock sound. Yeah, there's way more synth slathered all over it, and the groove isn't nearly as potent as it should be, but there's potential, and I honestly don't really mind the lyrics. Yeah, obviously cribbing from Olivia Rodrigo in The Longing, especially if this guy's leading her on, but there's a place for a song that has someone feeling like a wannabe in comparison with the girl that she wants to be. The central premise of the song makes sense, but it also exposes the huge problem that she really sounds like a wannabe. This is the big risk that comes with chasing all the husky voice pop acts of the past 6 to 8 years, that when the song demands more belting or more presence because the trends are changing, they just sound hopelessly outclassed by the singers who have the pipes and the energy to do it. Even if Billie doesn't like it, she can do it. Whereas Tate McRae projects a lot more weakness than you would otherwise like. In other words, give the song to a pop star who's got more range. This could have been great. As it is, okay at best. Number 43, Cigarettes by Juice WRLD.
I don't wanna be lonely no more. She picks my heart off of the floor. I'm addicted, yeah, I need me some more.
Okay, did we really need the extended version of Juice WRLD's second posthumous album? Was the Craven exploitation not bad enough the first time? Anyway, this is a song that first leaked back in October of 2018, but it's picked up a bit of a reputation as a fan favorite for those in the know. And funnily enough, I kinda get why with this. Yeah, it's not far removed from Juice WRLD's other love songs with the languid mid-tempo guitars, not exactly blending all that well with the trap beat, and the heavy reliance on undercooked repetition can make it feel a little indistinct. I don't think Juice WRLD was putting his all into this, but there was a yearning melancholy to it, and I like the central metaphor of smoking with regards to literal heartache. I kind of remember Logic doing something very similar back in 2014, and it worked there too. So, you know, I'm not gonna say this is great or all that special, but I get why it works. It's a fine enough song. I'll take that. Number 40, Don't Play That by King Von and 21 Savage.
Drill with a face, man. I wash my hand with the Ajax. I don't pay that. I don't pay that. I don't pay that. I don't pay that. Hold on.
And in the second of our posthumous entries here, and the one I did not expect. Yeah, King Von had a following, but he was only just breaking out. You'd think they would have made a move to push a song sooner rather than well over a year after he was killed, let alone that it would debut this high. And then when the buzz was suggesting it was pretty bad, I braced myself and yeah, it is pretty damn bad, mostly because it plays to none of what King Von's strengths actually were. The guy was a storyteller, he had some pretty visceral instincts, a lot of personality. So naturally, what you want to do is put him with a stock triplet flow on production with one of the most grating synths I've heard in recent memory, even before they start pitching it up on the verses, and that's not even getting into the weirdly airy percussion that just has no impact and sounds really odd. But I think the bigger problem is that it's trying to vaguely be a sex jam, with the most notable reference being to girls playing with their guns, I get the metaphor, and 21 then stealing one of his ops' girls. I've said this many times, that 21 Savage just should not make sex jams. It's been years, they're not in his wheelhouse whatsoever. So I'm left with the feeling as why they even thought this could have been a good idea. It's basic, not especially likable, that doesn't flatter anyone on it, dead or alive, distributed by Empire, who likes to flagrantly violate fair use provisions, and will file copyright takedowns en masse. So if this video disappears, like what will happen with my previous two, it'll be because of this song. And it doesn't make it any less crap. And finally, number 2, Do We Have a Problem by Nicki Minaj featuring Lil Baby.
Little back foreign bitch worth of 5, yo. Niggas know the vibe, that's worth of 5, yo. Beef, we about to resolve, yo. Pull up on the up, do we have a problem?
You know, at least for Nicki, it's a step up. Granted, step up over 6ix9ine in Collabs, but in a way, it kind of makes sense for Lil Baby to work with Nicki Minaj, in that they're both largely focused on their own ascendancy, and they've been wildly uneven in realizing it. So when I also say this is way better than I thought it would be, I actually kind of mean it. The cascading melody off the percussion that's trying to split the difference between trap and New York drill is actually really good in setting up the hook, where of course Nicki's gonna try to sing on it where it might not have been necessary, but she doesn't go overboard with that, and it helps add a little bit more contrast to a sharper, more violent verse, where it might feel more basic than what she normally delivers in terms of punchlines, but she's got more than enough personality to nail it effectively. I don't know why she chose to simplify her flow for her final verse, verse, but it's a song that plays into a lot of aggressive attitude, and Nicki Minaj is good at selling that, and thus it's kind of a shame that Lil Baby doesn't really deliver his A game. Oh yeah, the flex is fine, he's sharp enough to keep up, but he doesn't have the ease or the naturalistic charisma to sit opposite Nicki, and she kind of runs away with this, even if it feels lower stakes by her standards. And while I could nitpick and say that the percussion sounds kind of cheaper than I would prefer, overall, I actually think this is pretty damn good. I'm surprised I like this as much as I do. In fact, this might surprise some folks. I think Do We Have a Problem is probably the best of the week here. With the honorable mention, okay, Black Summer by the Red Hot Chili Peppers pretty much just on that guitar solo. But for the worst of the week, ooh, we got contenders here. I'm giving it to Scared Money by YG, J. Cole, and Moneybagg Yo, because there's no excuse why it should sound this incompetent. Don't Play That by the late King Von and 21 Savage is getting the dishonorable mention, mostly on Disappointment and that god-awful synth. But next week, honestly, I'm not seeing that major album impact coming, so it might just be another singles rotation. We'll have to see what sticks around. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse. And I'll see you next time.